Welcome back to my Budget App series, where I attempt to create a personal finance application from scratch and document the process on YouTube. In this video, I'll pick up where we left off last time. We built the components library repository, built process and everything, and we built the first components, the button and the icon components in the library. In this video, I will focus on form components, which we'll need, and I'll see how far I can get, possibly implementing a modal dialog. But the essence of the video will be implementing form components like inputs, styling them, preparing them for usage in the web client. Let's jump into the code. All right, let's continue with the components. I will first mention a few things I did off camera since last video when we implemented the BWUI repository, the Vite build process and the entire repository around that, and we implemented buttons and icon components. I, of course, as I mentioned in that video, added the BWUI repo to the monorepo as a GitHub module. That was pretty straightforward. In addition to that, I did a few changes to the components. Let me start the storybook so that I can show you. I will cd into packages BWUI and I will run the storybook script. Okay, this starts my storybook. So I did a few changes to the button. I related primarily to states. As you can see in the previous video, if you remember, my styles had a hover and focus states which were the same, and they were setting the background of the button to this darker color. I didn't like that for many reasons, primarily usability, accessibility, and others, and I didn't have an active state. So I first set the hover state to the darker color, and the active state, so when the user essentially clicks the button, lightens it to its previous value. This gives me this nice effect. Let me open the basic button and zoom it a bit so that it can be clearly visible. This gives this nice tactile effect when you click a button. And of course it has a transition, so that's nice. You see the outline. The outline is a focus state. It's a 3 pixel solid outline with opacity. This is essentially the same color as the primary color of the button, but with 0.3 opacity. I think this looks nice and indicates a clear focus state that is clearly distinguishable from the hover state. I wanted that. All right. Besides that, I had to change very slightly the icon button layout. Let me zoom out. It's still the same Flex layout with two span containers. The difference is the parent has align items stretch so that if the icon actually becomes larger, for example, 25 by 25, I'm sorry, that's not exactly right. I meant if the textual content becomes larger right here, in terms of font size primarily, let's say I set this font size to 25. This, of course, isn't a very common case, but I want the button to work correctly. I want this background to stretch and the icon to align properly. Now, I see right now that I actually didn't cover the other case, which is a very noobish mistake. If the icon becomes larger, everything stretches, but the text is not vertically centered because this isn't Flex. So I'll change that right now. It needs to have absolutely the same layout as this one. So display Flex and align item center, essentially. This way the button will work in all cases, kind of variations, and it will be flexible enough. So this applies to icon and content. Let me copy that, apply it to both, and I can delete that, and I can delete that as well. And I made the SVG inside the button icon display block so that it renders correctly in its measurements. If it is inline block as it is by default, there's some space beneath it. Let me refresh now and everything should be correct. All right, these are the changes I did to the buttons. Let me close DevTools, I'll zoom a bit. Icons, I didn't change much. As I mentioned, I just added the other icons from the library in Figma. And I did one accessibility change. I didn't think much about accessibility aspect of icons while I was implementing the component, as I was focused on the architecture. Yeah, I added the area labeled by property to every SVG, and it indicates that the area the icon is labeled by its title element. And I added a title element with an English language attribute, which describes the essentially graphical element. In this case, a calendar icon. This is very similar to, if you don't have experience with SVGs, this is similar to what an alternative text attribute would be in an image. You can absolutely skip this if your image is primarily decorative and it doesn't have any value. In this case, I decided to annotate these because they do have some value. I mean, I include them in these buttons, in callouts and clickable elements because they show essentially, they're indicative of the property of the item you're clicking. So people with accessibility problems deserve to have the same experience, in my opinion. So I annotated all of these, and the icon component turned out like this. The enum is filled with the items, and we have this switch case. This isn't great. You have to list the icons essentially 3 times. As I mentioned, that's usually what you want to avoid always. Just and you might think it's unnecessarily layering, like a layered architecture. That's not necessary because you can just use this. But as I mentioned in the previous video, I do want a single icon component in order to be able to set all props for it: width, height, fill, set it in place, whatever it is in the layout. That's always how an icon is used, somewhere in another component, in another layout, not by itself. And I want to be able to switch to a different icon without deleting the entire component, without going through that hassle. So in my opinion, that is absolutely worth it, this listing of icons, essentially 3 times. Yeah. All right. Besides that, there are many minor refactorings, small changes to the code. You can see that in the repository, not important. In this video, I want to focus on form components. We'll see if we will get as far as implementing the dialog. So the form components listed here are the basics, but essentially the basics I will need. We will style them as best as we can and implement individual React components for each of them. Meaning here we have inputs. I have a single input component. I have a select component for the select right here, and a Textarea component. We will do checkboxes, radius, and a label. I want to leave the native controls unstyled, meaning I will not style, for example, this input type email or text or whatever. I will only style my input component in React with a class name. I want my selects to remain, my native select elements, HTML elements, to remain unstyled and raw so that I can use them without resetting styles on them. Okay, so this is the approach we'll take. Let's start with an input component first. I will create a folder for it, as we will have styles as well. CSX, all right. All right. So essentially, I don't need that. We will export it, of course, and we will return an input. That's pretty much in all cases. Now we need to define props. Of course, let's not, of course, the props will be read-only object. Okay. Sorry, I've completely forgot how to write. Now, I don't want to forget something. So I will open the MDN input element reference so that you do forget things sometimes. Now, of course, the common sense one will be the type. We need ID, last name, name, of course. What else? These validation items. I don't know how much of them I will use. Probably use all of them actually. Required boolean. Actually, of course, I can just do an interface that extends. That's unnecessary typing. I will make an interface input props that extends. Let me see, React HTML props, I believe. Yes. Of the HTML input element. This way, we will support props of HTML input element. All right. Righty. That's great. Now here we will add all properties to the input. And in addition to that, we will need to add a class name to it and styles. But to do that, I'll change to a function. Okay. So basically, let me think. Yeah, I think I should just check. In that case, if we have a props class name, I will add my future styles input and props class name after that. It will be just styles. I just don't have it yet. That's not usually how you write code. And we will. Okay, I can just change that. No, the props are read only. Sorry. So I will. So that should override this spread, ideally. Let's check. Now we need to create the styles. Input module SAS. I will import that. Input, yeah, that's how it is. Okay, and I'll make it red just to check if everything is working correctly. Now, yeah, let's check a couple of things. To do that, I'll create a story immediately so that I can start debugging. This will be input stories. Okay, quite straightforward. Import input from input. Icon types here. Auto docs. Everything remains the same, my story. So here are my basic stories. I will call that text. Input type text. All right, let's see. That's good. Not bad. So essentially we have a class name right now, right? Yeah. Now let's see what happens if I add a second class name. But I want to check. I don't want two class name attributes for sure, but that's not what happens. As I told you, attribute overrides the prop spread, which I expected, but I needed to check either way, although I've done it a couple of times. You know how it is. All right, so this is a good start. What I will do now, and just check that. All right, yeah. Now we can start actually applying styles. And that would mean taking a look at the Figma design. All right. We have a 1 rem font size of medium weight. So we'll do exactly that. In addition, the input has some padding. Sorry, let me just see the color actually. 312 by default. Okay. Now the color, of course, will be a variable. Let me just see how I was naming them so they remain consistent. Okay. Yeah, BWI input color, and the default will be 323. In addition, what else? Padding, as I said, 1 rem on all sides. I'll reorder these a bit. Paddings, font size, font weight. Now the border radius is, of course, pixels. And do we have anything else to think about? The outline, stroke. And that would also be a variable, of course. Let's see, it's gray 1 is 6 by default. All right. Anything else? We need, of course, focus, all that, other states. We'll see that in a bit. Let's say for now, take a look what we've made. Right? 52 height, coming from where exactly? We have 1 rem font size, which I believe is much larger here. Yeah, it's 16. Now, this I will change in the storybook. The reason I'm changing it here is because the library should work with any body font size. It doesn't have any business modifying global styles. So changing the storybook size is the right way to go. Let's just see if it applied. Yeah, and now we have what kind of height? Check 46, which is still a little bit bigger, I believe. Yeah, 42. There's something else that is wrong. Probably line height. What is the line height? We're talking about normal. Let me see. Let's set line height to 1 right here in the font properties. See what we've got. 46. Yeah, that's actually quite normal in this case. Yeah, exactly. So here the font. Yeah, I have set the font to baseline. It just reserves more space for font, for basically drawing font symbols, how they render. It's normal for the height to be 16 pixels with line height 1. What I would do to mitigate that is probably lower the vertical padding so that I still have a 42. That's a little bit high. And to do that, I'll be basically horizontal padding will remain the same. The vertical I'll change until I get my desired 42, which will be 5.5 probably, 5.6. Okay, so this is my padding. Exactly what I need. Let's paste it right here. All right, now we have a background as well. Let's not ignore that. Gray one by default, which I'll put where? Right here after border. So again, copy a variable, pg color. Let's see. Okay, we're getting closer. Now there's a focus state. First, let me see. Is there anything else besides the focus state? There's a placeholder here. Okay. Let's add a placeholder. Okay. Do I like that? The contrast is a little bit low. Here, the way I've drawn it, it uses placeholders and it sets them to this color. So I'll probably set this color as the placeholder color and black when focused and actually writing. There needs to be a difference. I believe I'll set that. Let's first edit and then we'll change the variables a bit. No, it's not. Let me check. No, it was. Yeah, exactly. I probably have a syntax error. Oh, let me see. Completely change. Oh, it's just too light. All right. And basically that will be ph color, while this will be color and it will be black for the best possible contrast. Okay, I like this. Now, are we closer to what we wanted? Late to medium. Yeah, the font is a little bit lighter, but that's absolutely normal considering, yeah, it's drawn differently in all operating system browsers, etc. It's fine. We have the basics. I want to address the focus now. So I do want an outline, probably not that dark. I will probably do, let me see. I can modify the border as well or add an outline. I think in either situation I have to modify the outline, so I'll go with that. I'll go with again 3 pixels because my button focus is like that, so I'll just go with that and do the following. I don't like that particularly. I want something lighter, I think. Really dislike that. I probably just want to set outline to none and darken the border a bit. Yeah. So it's currently E6, which is what, grade 2? Let's try grade 3 and we'll go darker if needed, and then we'll convert it to a variable. Yeah, that's virtually invisible. So I need to go a step further. No, more. So grade 5. Maybe. I am happy with that. I'm very happy with that. So let's actually attempt to make it a little bit. What will happen in this case? Oh no, absolutely. So we need outline. Let's try outline in this case. What will happen then? I dislike that. It's good for accessibility, it's very visible, but I dislike it. So just border color with 1 pixel. Yeah. Focus border. Yeah, that's how it will be. I like it. I will transition the border though. Border color, let's see. All right. Good. I like that. Understated, but it will work pretty great. So this is the text style input. Let's zoom it a bit. But now, honestly, the search would also work very well. So let me see now. I will add it to the documentation. Where are we? Input stories. Sorry. Search. And that's just type search. And we'll do, yeah, search. Now, I will also add an email input just to check if it works correctly, though it's the same as text, so it will work correctly. Search. Let's see how we are doing. Yeah, text works well, email works well. Search doesn't work as expected because... Actually, do I have my font weight set? It's very light. Yeah, but it is like that at 500. Okay. Yeah, I need my icon. So I have a couple of options to implement this. The option I would go with is extra padding and an absolutely positioned icon, because that's what I believe would work best in this case. I didn't opt for that in a button because a button needs to be more flexible in that aspect. Search input doesn't. But still, we need to do a few things. We need to add the icon if it is of type search. That's one thing. So that's relatively easy to do. Props, very easy to do. Props type is equal to search. If that is the case, let me see what's happening. Why do I have... Oh, I was wondering why I don't have syntax highlighting. If props type is equal to search, in that case, I will import my icon component and icon types. And I will just... This is how you use my icon component now, which I really like. And let's do basically cover outside with CSS. Let's do width and height. We need to change these, by the way. They won't be absolutely stated. Oh, and otherwise, no. So nothing. Okay, here's the icon. Great. Works pretty well. Now, we will need a wrapper with the input. No great way around that with this approach. The approach of a pseudo element wouldn't require a wrapper. The drawback to that is I cannot reuse my icon component, which is a serious drawback actually. Oh wait, what is missing? Oh, fill. Fill shouldn't be a necessary requirement given a necessary prop, given that you can always set it with CSS. In fact, all of these shouldn't be necessary. So yeah, as I was mentioning, you could go without a wrapping tag with a pseudo element if you define the icon as something like a background or a, for example, a base 64 encoded or an encoded SVG more likely. But I prefer the maintainability aspect of this. If I modify the icon, it will change everywhere, so just better opinion. I will set this class name. Okay. This class name will be styles wrapper. All right. Yeah, great. Let's style that right now. What we're gonna do. we'll have the wrapper in all cases, right? That's pretty clear. It needs to be position relative. Now, if the input is type search, I also might want to add a class name to it. I do want to keep up with PEM conventions, I think. The other option is, can I target it like this? I should be able. Let's try. Yeah, I can. So we're doing that. Okay. So in that case, by the way, targeting SVG like that, I do not like. I would prefer it. How does the icon component work right now? Props. Yeah. All right. I would prefer a class name. So let's add it. And by the way, icon props doesn't have class name, and it should. And given that, here we have to do the same, basically, class name mechanics. So if we have props class name, that, otherwise, just icon. Yeah. Actually, let me think about it. I really dislike that. Yeah. Let's actually do that. Because that would work better. Right? And I'll change all of these icon props. Okay. So now my icon should have a class name. That's what I achieved. It doesn't at all. Let me refresh though. Oh, it doesn't. Interesting. Oh, of course. I mean, I'm looking at this and wondering why it doesn't work, but this is just sort of, yeah, delegate for all of my icons where I need to add the class name attribute here. Of course. Well, this is the drawback to that listing. You have to do some repetitive maintenance on all icons. Okay, I modified my icons, close them up. What I did is I should have an icon class now. And I do. All right. That's great. I can target it like this so that I can have other SVGs. Have opinionated selectors. Selectors using cascading and row elements. Now, yeah, what do I need to set to icon? The color, which is going to be absolutely the same as the pH color. The fill. And it should change on what? It should change on focus. Actually, yeah, I can do that. In fact, I absolutely don't need to target only search for this case. This case is universal. The icon just won't be there. It's not search. Search is only for cases when we have actual padding. That's when it matters. So add the icon fill here. Okay. And in that case, we'll change it to what? Cover. So the icon will change to cover when it's focused. Yeah. I think I can transition fill, but let's check. It will be quite subtle though. Yeah, I think I can catch it. Absolutely indistinguishable. All right. Close button, I'll leave. It's all right. Yeah, so let's position it now. The input type search will have padding left that is significantly larger, meaning we have one rem, then we have the icon size, which is one more rem, and yeah, essentially 3 rem. Okay. The icon width of 1 rem, height of 1 rem, and It will be absolutely positioned to left one rem. Should work fine. All right. It's actually not here. Why it isn't here? Top left. Interesting. Should be inside the wrapper. Let me see. Search. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. These styles are for icon again. I don't know why I target icon side of search. You should be here. Only the padding. All right. And you don't have the appropriate styles. What? Let me see. Because icon is targeted inside input and not wrapper. Okay. It should be plus. Let's change to red so that I can see if it's working at least. Isn't working as it seems. Not even the absolutely positioned item is working. Wait. Oh yeah. The icon class was unnecessary because I can target it with CSS modules. I forgot about that. So we'll have to go with SVG, and was selector is not working. Why is that? Let me check. The input type search is focused. Where is that actually? Focus. Either way, I mean, it was indistinguishable. It will be indistinguishable as an effect. I can make it work with the sibling selector. I don't know why I'm trying because I don't want it. So at this point, it's unnecessary. Okay, so this is my input type search. Works quite well. I like it. Of course, we introduced a wrapper for it, which is no small thing, but the wrapper will be useful in other cases as well. Like if we implement validation messages like that, it will be necessary at some point for sure. So I'm not too worried about introducing an extra element, especially since it's a wrapper for inputs. It's fine. All right, let's go forward. We do have the select component. Now, the interesting thing about the select is its styles are always almost the same as an input. It shares exactly the same styles, so you can usually style it with the same basic primitive directives in CSS, the same rules in CSS. So let's start by creating another component. That's for sure. We will create a component for the select. I'll copy the input. To avoid some boilerplate typing, icon I will need for the chevron down. The select props will be the HTML select element props, basically. And we'll call the component select. This will stay the same, except, yeah, we'll wait on that. I'll keep styles input. I will share these. I will just use these and additional styles. I'll say input styles like this. Okay. I think I want to keep the input wrapper. The select will be like this, but it has children. Options will be the children. I'll keep the options, the raw HTML options. That's fine. What else do we have? This is irrelevant now. All right. Let's see what we have. To see what we have, we again need to add a story. I will for the select. What else do we have? Only one story. Basic. No type, no placeholder. The arcs will be children and they will be like this. I will actually go for a multi-line here. Can I? Don't know. I hope so. Readability. Let's go with something more basic. Like this. Okay, does it render them? Okay, it does. Kind of like that. We have almost everything, honestly. There's very little to desire at this stage. The chevron down is the browser default. I have to hide it and hide it like this. But I don't want that, honestly, because it will also reset my... Does it reset my options? Let me see. I think it does. Oh, not really. Okay, so let's introduce the select styles now. I will import these as well. Conventional way. They are right here. And I'll add these as well. And here we'll have both. Sorry. All right, let's see now. Here we are. Okay. I want to check the height. It's 39. Why is that? Because of appearance mode. Probably. I can change the line height. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Gonna work better. That real quick. In reality, instead of changing the line height, I will just go to the input styles and for consistency reset their appearance. That's a better practice because we get more consistent styles across the board. In that case, we need to remove this from the select. All right. And let's go to inputs again and check what's happening. Everything is the same. Great. Okay. We care about the chevron now. And I'll do the same approach as with the search icon. The same thing. Except it will be easier this time. We have, yeah, one rem by one rem. So basically padding right has to be 3 rem. The icon, the padding on the right is 1 rem. The icon is 1 rem. And then we have 1 rem of spacing. Yeah, the icon is even smaller. It's 12 pixels. So our target SVG, the position absolute, right? 0, top percent. Well, I'll do width and height before that. And in addition, I'll do fill is what? Black. Okay. I'll do variable again, but it won't be black. It will be the same as... I will actually reuse the input colors here. I think that's better. No need to introduce an extra variable. I want this to be shared like this. And we have width, height, an absolute. This will center it vertically. The right will be right 1 rem. And that should do the trick. Now we just need to add the icon right here. The type will be icon types, chevron down. And I don't need any other properties. Great. That's great. Except that the input styles seem to be overriding that. Why? That's an interesting thing. Input wrapper. Oh, because I don't have a select wrapper. I only have an input wrapper. There's no point. Is there a point keeping the input wrapper? No. All right. Yeah, keep it down here. And the SVG styles will be inside here. And it needs to be relative, of course. Okay. Now this drop-down menu is not styled. I prefer it this way. I'll keep it with the operating system defaults. Better. Safari on other operating systems, it will look differently. That's not a problem. The user knows how to use this. And best of all, accessibility is out of the box. Keyboard navigation, everything. It's just a normal select element underneath. Okay. This is basically what we need. One more thing for all of these inputs, I want to do widths. So you can go a few different routes here. You can make them full width. That's not necessary. I have tailwind, I can always add a utility to stretch them. I want a minimal width, which in this case will be something like 340. So add that to the input tiles in rems. So 24 rems. Okay. Minimal width is very useful in this case. I just want to check why the search not the same 365. Well, the search is 336. What's the reason for it? Very interesting. Padding? Oh, tell me. Huh. I haven't said box sizing. Haven't said box sizing. Not in here. I mean, we have box sizing border box, but not in the storybook. In the application, we do that. So that should make it consistent. Yeah. All right. That's great. We have these three inputs. Let's go with text areas now. Text areas are interesting in a way. Again, we have shared styles. We'll go with similar approach with select, reuse as much of the styles, but still we will create a component. That's just how we need to work. I'll copy the select component and paste it. We don't need icons this time. We need the input styles. We will have styles here. Text area props will be the props of HTML text area element. Okay. Okay. I'll do it like this. Capitalize like this. I like it. Okay. Input styles input. We need that class name. We need styles text area probably. I actually don't know if we'll need styles, to be honest with you. The text area should probably work fine with the input styles. But let's see. I will use the input wrapper by default if I don't need to change it. There will be no icon. Okay. Let's see now. We need a storybook. A story. All right, components, text area. All right. So the basics. I'll go with empty arguments for now. Refresh. What's wrong? To fetch dynamically imported module. Module is missing? Let's see. Textarea module.sas. Let's create it for now. I might need to remove it, as I mentioned, because I'm not sure if I need it. And I definitely will, probably will not need it. Actually, I don't want to resize. But that was a prop, right? That was definitely a prop. And CSS. Yeah, I will. Exterior resizing is not going to happen. So let's do that. Text area class name. Okay, that's pretty good. I think I would also set a min height. Something like rem maybe. No, too big. And height will be something like 8 rem. That's acceptable. This can be modified, of course, with Tailwind. Um, okay. Very minimal. Not a lot of code, pretty lean, but still a separate component for flexibility. I'm not afraid to introduce components for these items because that really gives me flexibility. Now let's go to the interesting stuff. Checkboxes and radio. I say interesting because they are usually very limited in terms of styling the native element, especially if a few years back you couldn't style anything on these. So the approach, if you wanted custom checkboxes and radios like these ones to fit better in your design stencil, was to hide the checkbox and the radio element from the operating system and the browser and draw your own and coordinate that using the label element and checked states. This is in many cases a very bad idea because people do it. They don't think about accessibility at all. They create something worse, trying to fit into their design system, but not considering that they're not fitting with the operating system design and the native controls, which people are very used to and can immediately detect because they're everywhere. Now, I can see both arguments. Sometimes you want a very sleek design of these controls to fit your overall design system. On the other hand, you can get something very close to these with just 3 CSS properties and be sure that accessibility will work great, that the operating systems will work great, and people would actually probably recognize the controls better because they are their OS controls. Let me show you what I mean. Let's start with a storybook this time. I will go with, actually, yeah, here we're talking about an input. So let's see how broken it will be with the current styles. All right. Type checkbox folder. Let's see what we have. Input. Awesome. So we don't want to apply this style to checkbox and radio. And to avoid that, we have a couple of options. I will handle it in React. Just, it would be the leanest, best way in my opinion. This might change. I don't like branching my code like this usually, but in this case, I think it will be the best option really. I'll reconsider that and see in the future I can figure something better out. So we'll check if props type equals checkbox equals radio or checkbox, we'll return a different thing. We'll just return, something different, definitely, which will be, I actually don't need, yeah, I don't need to change that. I need to change the class name, right? So here's what we're gonna do. Checkbox and radio will have the same styles. And you see why a bit. So in that case, I can reassign class name. Now this will repeat code. We can refactor this. Let's make it work first. That's the most important thing. So just checkbox, fine. Even though it will be for radio as well. Of course, we can rename that as well. So in that case, we change the entire style sheet, the entire class name. And this means we get the native checkbox here. Let me zoom in. The native Chromium checkbox. And the other components should remain constant and the same. Yeah. All right. Now, the checkbox is smaller. The color is different. First of all, the accent color you can easily change with the new accent color CSS property. It gives you a lot of flexibility with these elements. to fit in your design system. So we have checkbox, accent color, and here I will go with, yeah, I will go with a variable again, of course. WUI checkbox accent. There we go. And that change the accent color. Let me refresh. Zoom. Now, of course, this is blue again, so it might not be that visible. So let's change to red temporarily so that I go straight. Yeah, okay. That isn't working. Interesting. Let me check. It should be working. That's the expected style. We do not have the class name. That's the problem. And we do not have the class name. Why? Styles checkbox. Oh, because I added it in button. That explains a lot. I was wondering what's wrong. Let's refresh. Checkbox, zoom. Okay. Yeah, everything. So yeah, the accent color really helps with consistency with the style guide. I will set it by default to the primary color as it is in the design. In the design, we have this blue. It is rounded in Chromium by default, which is great. And we have this blue. Now, the actual checkmark icon, yes, it's thicker, maybe a little bit uglier, but on Safari it will be different, on Firefox it will be different, and it will actually be more consistent with the operating system. So it's a trade-off. I could create a full custom checkbox here and go this far to implement it. It won't be that difficult actually. You just need to hide that, keep the clickable area, draw something on top of it. It's not that difficult. But just the balance, here I have set one property and I can set width and height to do the size because it's a little bit small. I reset the size, a little bit small on the small side, and I can make it more consistent if I just resize it a little bit. That's it's 90% of the styling with minimal effort and minimal invasion to the accessibility properties of the checkbox. So to me, that drawback is absolutely worth it every time. Now the width and height, straightforward. It's 18 pixels, which in RAMs compared to 14 pixel font size is 1.285. So let's do that. And refresh. There we go. And we can use absolutely the same style for radio. We actually are using it because that's how we set it up here. And if I go now to my story, I can change this to radio and refresh, and it works the same way. And we have an active state, stable state, everything. Yes, they are not exactly the same, but we're close enough. And that's what we want. We want ideally to get the pixel perfect design and keep the native elements whenever possible, because they do have a lot of advantages. This is very close. I mean, I wouldn't go further than that, especially in this case. Keep in mind these elements will probably, they are not even included in the design checkboxes and radios because the only place they will probably be used is in the settings page where you will configure some preferences. So they wouldn't be that invasive to the design system. And now let's talk about labels. Label element. I'll create a component for it again because I don't want to style the label, but that component will be very simple. So basically, label, I will go, of course, I will just output the label and the children. I will still use the same approach to inherit the props from the label element. That will be the easiest way to go, I think. HTML label element. I forgot an assignment operator here, and I need to export it. Okay, that's pretty good. Here, of course, we need to set the class name and the props. Here, the class name, I'll set it like this time. If props name, we will have a template string with styles label, and then props class name. Otherwise, we'll have styles label. And I will collapse this to multiple lines so that it's readable. What did I do? Okay, good. Now, next step, create the style sheet. Label module SAS. I will import the styles here. Great. And set the color to red just to check if the imports and everything is working correctly. And to do so, again, I need a story. TSX. There we go. The component will be a label. Oh, basic label. I don't need all of these. Some label. That's enough. Is that good? Let me see. Label stores TSX. What is missing? Unable to index. Label stores TSX. Missing default export. Oh, did I remove something? Export default meta. It's right here. Interesting. Let me rerun the storybook. Oh, really? I think that was an intermediate error, apparently. Okay, yeah, so the label styles is basically one rem and has some spacing beneath it, which I've actually defined. Wow. Defined it, but let me see how I can measure it with a frame, I guess. Yeah, one rem. It will be quite lean. A label is a display block element, if I remember correctly. Now, wait, is it not a display block element? Oh no, it's an inline element. Of course it's an inline element. That makes perfect sense, actually. Yeah, we need to make sure always that the label doesn't have padding. We need a separate field element for compositions. The label has to be used with both inputs and checkboxes. Input case is that children label, and then we'll render the following. Label. Okay. Like this. And then we'll render an input. Type text. Whatever. What do we have as an error right now? Oh, yeah. What else do we have? Okay. You have an issue here. Think comma. So many. Small syntax errors from my end. Okay, so this is how one case, and the other case is the checkbox case, which is the following. Type checkbox, then the label. In that case, we don't need these wrapping brackets because we have only one JSX element that we're returning. And the radio case will be the same, but I will still do it for consistency and to avoid any surprises. All right, there we go. Well, As you can see, all of these don't work right now. So, first of all, let's do these. They are simpler. The input wrapper is a problem. And now that's an issue we have to solve. We don't want a wrapper around checkboxes and radio buttons. So after all, I will need to change the markup here. I dislike this so much. This branching that happens here. Dislike it a lot, really. But needs to happen. Might as well embrace it. Okay. So in this case, we'll just return that. Short circuit the entire thing. I don't need to redefine class name. Just go like this. And that should do the trick. It does the trick, yeah. Okay. Well, spacing is an issue, and here we don't have spacing. So if I add padding to the label itself, this will break. If I attempt to vertically center this, in this case there won't be side effects, but this has to be handled with a separate element for safety and to have the best styles architecture possible, which I'll call a field element. That's how I usually handle this case. It's an extra element, but it does provide a lot of flexibility. A field will be a div. It can be a field set, but that's not really not necessary. Let's define field props. They'll be read only. We'll have children, of course, React Node. We will have class name, okay, which will be string. Let's keep that for now. So class name, with all other cases, we have props class name, then class name will be a template string of styles input, styles field, and props class name. Otherwise, it will be just styles field. And here we'll have props children. Good. And now we need the styles, the actual styles. And to do that, we will do the following. I will import the style sheet field module.sass. All right. And export this. And that component is pretty much done. Rest of the work will be here. I will set background to red as is compulsory now. Now this story will actually simplify a lot. These cases, I don't care about that much. I will copy this entire file, and I will do the following. Field stories is not a SAS document, but a TSX document. I'll use label and everything. I will use field as well. Okay. Now, basic, don't care about. Input case is the first I care about. Children, not interested at all. We need to make these props non-required because they're not. And here, this will be a field. All right. We'll have a field here as well. And here. All right. Well. This is the label docs. The label docs I'll simplify a lot because I don't care about these cases. Here, I'll leave this basic. What's happening? Got resolve. Oh yeah. Done. So let's go to the field docs now. Remove the background. All right. Where's my label here? Input case. I don't have args children. Here. Don't rely on arguments here. Not necessary. These are not the arguments of the component. Hard code the labels. Good. First step. Margin bottom. What's wrong? Let me see. Field label. Do we have the class name? Styles field. Maybe we don't. Let's see. We do. Yeah. We do have the display block. Okay. Bucket. Great. That's great. Now, this is a little bit too much in my opinion, actually. So I will put more margin. Besides that, here we don't really have any significant breakage, but we will soon. And now let's see how we'll handle this. We need, what do we have? A label with a checkbox. All right. We can just set the label play flex. This will pretty much solve everything. Justify content center. And what else do we need? Not much, to be fair. That's a pretty neat hack, honestly. And by the way, checkboxes and radios shouldn't have any margins. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, one of these. Which axis? Yeah, justify content has to go. As I see it now, actually, all of these styles could be applied to a label. Don't like it that much. But I can do this. And do margin right 1 rem, which I believe, what was my initial plan for these? Yeah, 1 rem. And I essentially just added styles to the actual label. And it works great with Flex. Yeah, I like that. So I'll remove this entire field component. Go back to my label and just apply these styles to it. All right. I will re-add these stories to my label, removing the field, just going backwards essentially. It's not that bad. As long as I figure it out, it's fine. Save. See what's going on now. I want to see label, basic, input, checkbox, radio. Great. Field goes. Move to the bin. I would probably reinstate args here and use props children, args children here for the label, but that I'll do off camera. No need to do that repetitive work 3 times video. All right, so with that, we have all of the form components. And I think that will be a good wrap for this video. These do take quite a long time. They're quite tedious. On one hand, they're straightforward. On the other, I make decisions on the go, and I'm filming this as I would. I've done form components many times, and every time you do them, it's different because first of all, you get new browser features, new possibilities. Second of all, every app is unique and its requirements are quite different. Now, I don't want to go into the model dialog because I want to implement this with an HTML dialog element. I expect this will have challenges on its own, and that would probably be best to be handled in a separate video as well as the table. So with that, I think I'll stop here. With this, I'll wrap today's video. If you enjoy the content and the series, don't forget to subscribe to get notified when another video is released. Take care.